It's a Magnus. About 2,000 or 3,000 degrees.
Okay,
They're-
so,
they're, Magnesite. They were front-
so let's go
front-
ahead and get started. I think we have a quorum, but just to go through, we have a few guests, online. But as far as the, presence, Mary Baring, I'm here, Dick DeGrasse.
What?
Say here.
You have to say here. We have to do it when we're doing the.
Just say here.
We're gonna talk about the.
No, just say here, it's attendance.
Just say here. It's
Oh, yeah,
attendance.
that's all we want.
Bill,
Not here.
Bill's here, Monica
Here.
and Cressica,
I'm here.
yeah, and who else is, I can't see.
Janice.
Oh, Janice,
Hello, I'm here.
okay, and
The
so,
blurry.
Monica,
Approved.
me, approved, Bill,
Approved.
Dick, okay. So we'll move on to, updates on the ongoing projects, as far as the library goes, has it, I believe the solar is, moving along, the heat pumps, it's taken a lot of time to get. We've been trying to get additional bids on the heat pumps and we've had people express interest and then either just not hear back from them or back out. So we still have a couple of people we're waiting to hear from. We need to decide in the next couple of weeks because we don't want to miss out on the current rebate opportunity for
May
that.
may I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
Just in general, I know that we've been looking for lower cost providers
Yeah.
than, for example, Evergreen and Revision.
Right,
But I just want to point out that when Evergreen and Revision do a job for us,
yeah,
it's well done.
Yeah.
And they're reliable, they show up. And it's hard to put a price on that. So,
right. Well, I think.
Wait,
that's
are you talking about the heat pumps?
not specifically, just in general, that, Revision doesn't do those heat pumps,
Well-
but they do.
Right, right now we have a bid from Solar Logics on the heat pumps. And,
They were
you
good.
know, in terms of due diligence, we just are trying to get, you know, a couple of other bids in.
Sure.
I guess if we can't even get other bids, we'll have to decide whether to go with the one we have. Anything else to add to that, Cressica?
No, we're still waiting on 2 bids. Um,
I have
And-
a question. Do we need to, does the committee need to vote on who we choose, or is that a whole separate process?
Be good to get
we'll make,
consensus.
we'll make a recommendation and
But we need to decide in 2 weeks, we won't have a meeting until 2 weeks after that, so. do
Well, we
need-
need to
we
make
need
a
to-
decision for the next meeting. We can circulate the information by email. And ultimately, it's, the actual contract is signed by the town manager, but they do, you know, they will base it on our recommendation.
You can have a special meeting just for that if you want to get a vote on it.
Okay. We can do that, probably by Zoom.
Yeah, that was my
Munis-
point.
Yeah. Municipal building, Cressica? Oh, go ahead.
Melissa has her hand up.
Melissa?
It's not related to the library, but it's related to what you guys were doing with the Energy Hub. I received an email from one of our citizens that had signed up, and Tizzy was the point person for it, was her understanding. And now she's needing to know who to contact for further information. Hers is about I think it's a water heater, a hot water heat
Oh.
pump. And so
you can
if,
forward it. Yeah, sorry, you can forward it to Harriet and me and
okay,
Janice.
perfect. Thank you.
Or the whole energy committee list if it's easier. It's fine.
Okay,
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you.
Melissa.
Okay, thanks. Municipal building, Prescott, do you have anything to update on that?
I think tomorrow evening at the select board meeting, the municipal building committee will provide updates on both of those buildings. So
Okay.
I would recommend listening in on that.
Okay. And anything new on the EV charger?
Monica?
Yeah,
No.
okay.
That's coming.
Okay, and Dick, the main utility policy,
Yeah, I
Update.
have a couple of things, first of all, related to the last, select board meeting. And one of the reasons that was not made clear, was that I wanted somebody other than Standard Offer, because we could get off-peak power rates. This is the contract here for the Standard Offer for the state of Maine, and it prohibits time of use pricing on small and medium-sized customers. They're prohibited, but they're not prohibited on large customers. So I wanted to have a different supplier. The supply difference in the price of power was very small. And I wanted Constellation because we could deal with them. They are not covered by this contract. Okay, so they could offer different rates. And I've been leaning hard on that. And I got a response today, which I think is very encouraging. But one of the other encouraging things for the state of Maine is that Dan Jacobs has proposed a cabinet level position, which will be voted by the legislature this year, be taken up by the legislature this year, for a cabinet level position for the energy office that's here.
okay,
And that would mean that the cabinet level position would give the officials in charge of the cabinet office the authority to make reasonable changes to the rate structure and other such things. And I'm beginning to get some feedback on that. And that's why we probably should go back and vote on the Constellation contract again, even though the price difference is very small. The savings difference is small. I got a call back from CMP recommending that they could find a contract for us for off-peak power. Now, I haven't evaluated it, I haven't looked at the numbers yet, but it's possible. Now, why do I care about on-peak power? This company that I passed out the brochure on is one I know very well. Paul Stebbins is a friend of mine. Because when I founded Control Electric, he founded this company.
yeah, just to stop you for a minute, so Dick passed out a handout which
The handout
yes,
for
we can
Stebbins.
make available, or I can maybe scan this and send it to the people who are online, but this is about the thermal heat storage of room units, so small units that could be used in a home, which allow for a way of storing. If you have low off-peak rates, you can heat them up during the off-peak and then use the heat, yeah.
But one of the things that should be known about this is that Steffes has put in, you're not gonna believe it, 10,500 of these units in Halifax, in Nova Scotia. And they amounted to 40 megawatts of power, off-peak storage power. That got the attention of the state of Maine, and that's one of the reasons, in my humble opinion, that they're going to a cabinet level. Because these are huge savings, and they've been popular all over the world. They have not been popular in Maine because of the contract that has been in effect on Standard Offer for many years.
So
And so that's where I'm headed, and I think we're gonna make progress. But I was very upset when there was not a knowledge apparently of the difference between the CNP delivery charge and the Standard Offer. And the
So,
two
Bill?
separate contracts.
Can I make a practical comment on this thing? So first of all, I think this is a great idea. My mother-in-law had off-peak capability here on the island decades ago, and she used it to great advantage. I mean, I think it's a great idea. These storage units are, heat storage units are a good idea for those who are interested in them. I think this is wonderful. Your work on that is great. You're concerned that we lost this particular opportunity in the contract, and my only comment to that is, okay, that's maybe a loss, but it's only for a few months, and it is not likely that we would see a large number of these installed within that period of time before the next contract comes up. Am I correct?
You're exactly right.
So I think we could.
The
work-
contract is also, sorry, the contract is also for the municipality. It's not for residents who would be installing these. Are you
Right.
saying that the town should install these thermal storage systems?
I'm not saying they should or should not. I'm just saying the possibility to do this in any serious way
Yes,
will be delayed. a bit,
Exactly right.
That's
It's
all.
gonna take some time. Jessica, Constellation serves the entire state of Maine. 50% of the power coming into this room right now is from Constellation. But you're right, the Constellation has a special contract with the municipalities, but they do serve the entire state of Maine, and there's no reason on earth why they can't offer it through a different program than the standard offer.
But I think, this clearly is something that can be revisited and should be
I'm working on it
revisited
now.
as
I got
more
the call this
information
afternoon
comes along.
from Central Maine Power suggesting we could go to,
I would
they
just,
had a company to offer.
I would just make the comment that before we take something like this, just to avoid the problems that occurred, before taking something like this to the select board, we either have a special Zoom call or email exchange with the members of the committee to make sure that all members of the committee are on board with whatever is recommended, or at least a majority. And so let's move on.
Things are happening very quickly at the state level because the legislature will be taking up the cabinet position in the governor's
Yeah,
office.
so that will be very interesting if that happens.
They're
Right,
well
Yeah.
aware of this because I've been communicating, all of this is all communication with the state on that subject.
Right?
May I make a proposal,
Yeah.
not to be voted or anything,
Yeah.
just a proposal that in the coming months. We use some of our time, for example, at the events that we're bringing up and so on, to popularize these ideas, to see what the interest will be and to
Exactly.
see if we can.
Yeah, I
Provide
think
more
getting that,
thrust to this idea.
yeah, I think
Well-
letting know about it, although it won't be, again, this won't be particularly useful to homeowners until such a time
That the
as
rates are-
off-peak rates
right.
are available, or that we have our
I
solar
should also
things, but-
say one other thing.
Yeah.
These have been, Steph, these kind of units have been used with renewable power as well.
Yeah,
They're used with solar energy and they can be used with wind power or
Sure.
any
Right.
renewable.
Sure.
It's a storage. It's a heat
But-
storage in this case.
But if somebody is using just plain old electricity, these things are less efficient than a heat pump, right? Because they directly
No.
heat up something.
The heat pump saves energy because it's more of a mechanical device, no question about it. But you can't make that comparison. These are 100% efficient because all the energy ends up in the room.
But Dick, that is a constant, let's not talk about it now. That is a common misconception. This is a resistance coil that is heating up these bricks.
Right.
Heat pumps are not
Oh.
resistance coils. They're much more efficient.
I agree with
All
that.
I'm saying, time out. All I'm saying is if before we recommend these things, we have to have cost comparisons so people make informed decisions. I'm not sure just giving them the brochure from that company is like informed decisions.
Agreed, Janice. I wasn't suggesting that we recommend. I was suggesting that we inform
Right.
and inquire about interest conditional to lower rates in the future.
I'm not fighting against heat pumps, believe me, at all. I
okay,
just
so,
want to be sure that it's clear that there are two separate technical subjects going on here.
Yeah.
And one of the big issues on heat pumps, of course, is that they peak the system being the utility system, not just the homeowner. They peak it on the coldest days of the year,
right,
at the coldest times of the year. And that has an adverse effect for those who want to save renewables and things like that. They say you're going to end up with generation on peak to serve that load. And that is one of the reasons why the governor's office is moving this on a cabinet level so they can debate this issue.
That's a valid point.
But
So-
we have to be, I'm not about this stuff, but we have to recognize what it is.
yeah, well, I think it's pretty interesting. So moving on to the firehouse project, Bill, or Monica,
No,
you
go
want to
ahead.
talk about the audit that took place?
Yeah, we met with Nate from Evergreen today and he was able to go up in the attic space. Upon searching in the attic space, he saw that was able to get a gist of like what's actually going on the attic. There is strapping, like side note to insulation that could possibly help us with fixing the light fixtures in the fire station and make sure they don't fall on anyone's head. We just have to figure out the layout of it. But for insulation, he saw that there was fiberglass rolled out onto in between the rafters, and cellulose was blown on top of it. And he was stating that his company more than likely did not do that insulation process of putting in the cellulose because they would take out the fiberglass before putting in the cellulose insulation. So we are going to be talking to Janet and also the town treasurer to figure out if we could find a bill to try to like piece together what company did do that insulation over in there. He did also recommend, after speaking with Fred Porter, who wants to put in an HVAC system because of the new OSHA laws, they're really cutting down on everyone who doesn't have a proper exhaust airflow system, that if we were to do the exhaust system, we need to do the HVAC before we do any type of insulation in there. He also explained with concern from Fred and Mert that the generator room that's located behind the ambulance, that there is a very large airflow vent that is continuously open 24/7. It did get very cold in that room very quickly, that we need to contact the maintenance for the generator, the company that does it, not the maintenance person, but try to find out if they have an engineer in their company that could come out to possibly do a motorized valve system to close and open whenever the generator does turn on, because you still need to have the exhaust flow come out. He also recommend possibly tightening up the generator room a little bit better to help with that. But right now it was just a free audit, trying to like figure out some ideas, answer some questions. Went pretty well. I did leave at one point after we looked at the generator room, so. if
I
there's
have a
anything else-
footnote to add, okay? He looked, 2 footnotes. He looked at the doors and the windows, no comment about the windows. He commented that we could do something to upgrade the door, okay? But we didn't talk about that
He's talking about
extensively.
the main doors?
No, not that, we did talk about those as well, but not to any effect, okay? I just pointed out the issue, so not worth discussing that. But it's the door that leads off the northwestern corner where the weather stripping is a mess, and the door itself is quite cold to the touch. So he agreed that we might consider something there. But more to the point that you just raised, Monica, about the venting in the room.
Mhm.
I showed him the vents on the outside. He hadn't seen it from the outside. Cressica and I were there last year, 3 or 4 months earlier than now, looking at those vents. We lubricated and opened up the closable vents, so that part works fine. But there's a fixed open vent for the intake, and that's very large. And that's what brings cold air routinely, even when the generator is not working, into that area. So what Nate and I discussed after you left, Monica, was the idea of a manifold system that limits the flow of air, not to the whole room, but to a conduit that goes right to the motor for the generator, and then is exhausted through the opening flaps. That's not hard to do. I think we ought to have an airflow engineer verify the demand and the diameters and the volumes involved. I mean, we could do a makeshift thing ourselves and it would probably work. But it would be a better idea to have someone who really knows what he's doing, design it, and then the insulation to the room would be great, but it wouldn't be as necessary because the whole room wouldn't be filled with cold air. It would be only the manifold system that's filled with cold air. So
They did talk about that in the generator room, and Mert brought up that there is a piece on the generator that needs open airflow, which could be an issue if we did do a manifold into the intake. I don't know that. And then they also were, Nate was asking about the generator, because I know that when power goes out, that generator takes over the town building, health center, and the fire station. The question was if that same generator was gonna take over the new health center as well.
I don't think so.
no idea.
Jessica, do you know the answer to that?
So can you repeat that? Sorry.
The generator that's here in in the fire station here now serves the whole town office and the health center, this whole building. And the question he asked was whether that would also serve the new health center building, or whether they're gonna have their own generator.
They'll have their own generator next to the ambulance bay.
Which will actually reduce the demand on this generator because these rooms won't have the same load as the health center will.
Right.
Okay, so then with a different generator, then that was another thing Nate brought up. Was it's not really best to be having a generator inside of the building at the moment. It'd be best to look for a grant or funding to possibly create a generated house outside of it. Which also gives space for the fire department and the ambulance bay.
That's a
Because
good idea.
at the moment, when there's like cones and such blocking the wall that allows. Say like we need to replace a generator or something, there's a makeshift piece in the wall that gets cut out to remove, we can't seal it off completely. Over time, the ambulance has backed up into it just casually, which is
Like
called a
recently?
quick
Yeah.
little tilt of the wall coming into the generator room.
And
So-
to add to that, that tore the strap, the taping, so that now there's a bigger gap between the generator room and
Yeah.
the firehouse
Nate
than
was-
there was before.
Yeah, Nate was very adamant to me, Mert and Fred, that it really isn't best to have a generator inside the building, that we should be looking into getting funding or a grant to have a generator housing unit on the outside of the building.
I don't know why we never thought of that. That's a really good idea.
It's a quick build, I guess,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
And then Fred did mention that there could possibly be archives, paper archives or microfilms of the building of the fire station. I need to talk to Janet and Tina about it. He said it was possibly built in 87 or 89, so I'll start trying to dig around to see if we can find anything of like blueprints or any notes that were taken at the time of how the actual firehouse was built.
If you find anything, this building predates that, but if you find anything relevant to this building, it'd be nice to have those as well.
Okay.
This building was built back in the mid to late seventies, so it goes back into a decade.
So in terms of our immediate plans, we still want to shore up that room a little bit. And then get some kind of proposal for the HVAC system.
Can I
Yeah.
offer a thought on that? If
Yeah.
we're going to move the generator outside, then putting in, it depends on how long all this is gonna take to make happen, right?
That may take a
But-
while.
But it probably isn't worth putting a lot of money into sealing that generator room adequately at this point, because that's gonna take some carpentry and some,
Yeah.
some other work. If we could displace the generator outside and enclose it outside, better to put the carpentry into an enclosure for the generator outside
Yeah,
than invest the time and the money to do it inside.
we could perhaps get some estimates on what that might
Yeah.
cost to do
But
that.
it's, it's gonna take 3 years to move the generator, then maybe we ought to do the
Okay.
insulating now.
But Nate did recommend that if we're gonna be putting an HVAC system in for the exhaust of the ambulance and the fire department,
Yeah,
which is OSHA's newest standards, and they're really
Right.
cracking down on it.
yeah,
We need to do the HVAC before they insulate the attic,
okay.
so, because it's just gonna be a mess trying to work around it. And he said he does know an HVAC company in Augusta, I think.
Yeah, he said he would send me the name of it. I don't think it's in Augusta. I think it's farther south, but I could be wrong about it. He
Yeah.
will send us that information.
Okay.
How far away are we from construction of the Up Island garage? The funding hasn't quite been finished up yet.
This isn't part of the discussion.
That's not what we're talking about right
I
now.
know
Yeah.
that, but I'm asking a question.
Well, there's the meeting tomorrow about that, but.
Is there one? 'Cause
Melissa has a good question in the chat.
Okay. What's the question?
Well, I
It's
can
hard
read it.
for us- It's hard for us to see chats in a live meeting. Let's see.
Well, what she said was,
I was thinking that maybe Cressica could broach the topic with the municipal health building. If they're already assembling a structure for their generator that's going to be next to the ambulance bay, what about if we sweet talked them into having ours placed in with theirs?
Sure.
Yeah, may make sense.
Yeah,
I think, I mean, in this case, these generators are kind of ready-made units that have their own enclosure.
Oh,
So,
gotcha.
you know what I mean? So it would be ideal if we could put the generator and the, fuel supply back where it is already they're just outside in the rear because we already know we can put the fuel supply. We've already got the fuel supply there, and we can connect it to the existing electrical system with a very short run. So it might be ideal to put it back there. But
I
yeah,
don't-
moving it outside is a great idea. Yeah.
I learned something today I didn't know, maybe all you do know, but the fuel for the generator comes from the same tank as the fuel for the furnace. So Fred asked the question, and Mert asked, actually it was Mert, asked a question about when we evaluate the heating costs for the fire station, we have to remember that, I'm stating this as a statement, not a question, but we have to remember that some of the demand for fuel oil goes to the generator. So what I told him is that I will be able to average the summer demand on a fuel over the last 10 years and estimate from that how much went to the generator and subtract that from the heating cost of the building. So I will do that
Huh.
in the future.
All right, moving on. Janice, do you want, there's probably not much to say. Do you want to, fellow?
Point, Harriet.
Oh, sorry.
If it's possible to get an off-peak power rate, we could heat the floor in that building up there with coils in the floor and heat it, which Mert prefers anyway, which is the heat in the floor. Rather than.
You're talking about the
any kind of
up island.
circulation. This is.
Yeah.
We have very little input to that.
But I want to do, that's why I asked the question about when is it, because we may very well have a rate fairly soon.
Yeah.
And we can offer up and put coils in the floor and heat it, make it so.
That's
With the new municipality building project, unfortunately, the committee isn't as involved with it. I do know there's a member on this committee that is working with
Yep.
them. But we are focusing, to my assumption, on the new health center building, because a few roadblocks have come up, especially with financing. So pushing back the Up Island garage has been a problem, but we did talk about that, I think, back in October or November, the possibility of doing and laying down heating floors in order, and also plumbing sources without actually connecting it to a septic tank in order to avoid costs later in the
Yes,
future.
so you lay down what has to be done now, but you don't hook it. That, I suggested that a year ago.
Yeah.
The principle of
Karen.
the same.
From what I understand, they are going to install the infrastructure for the slab heating. And for plumbing, they're gonna install all the
That's what Monica
infrastructure.
just said.
Yeah,
Good.
but they're not planning anything yet. Yeah.
All right. So Janice, do you want to briefly update the committee on the island fellow application?
Sure. The ICC and potentially IIT expressed an interest in working with us to get the fellow. So I'm meeting with Candace on Friday to work that out. The application is due at the very end of January, so we have time. And that's it. So the good thing about collaborating is it will cost our committee less. I mean, we won't have to take the full fellow out of our budget.
But it also may enhance the application, right?
I hope so. I hope
Yeah.
so.
They're
But
usually big on collaboration.
Yeah.
But they've changed their criteria for the fellowship. It has to be marine employment based or sustainability based. So I think we can make the argument, but so it's just a little bit more complicated because it's a little bit more focused.
Yeah.
So, but that's not a problem. We just have to work it out between the groups.
All right, so the next item on the agenda, I just put down as open discussion. We had an event in December that some of the people here were at, and we have funding for additional community event. We had talked about doing one this week, actually, to provide information about the grant application, but we aren't really ready to go ahead with that. So I just wanted to find out what people's thoughts were about, you know, what events we should be planning on, when they should be. And, you know, we can do a sort of a fairly small. We could put together or even, you know, into June when more of the seasonal residents will be here. So it's just open for discussion. What are your thoughts?
I think if you want the seasonal residents, you'd be more likely to get more interaction in July rather than June. Because a lot of people come mid to late June or even just a few days before the 4th of July events, which they need to have time to kind of like settle
settled.
back in
Yeah.
and whatnot. So.
Very true. I was only thinking about the fiscal year.
Oh, yes, that's true, yeah.
But that's a good point.
I don't know how to do this, but it seems to me that we ought to think about how we could draw in people who haven't already bought in, haven't already come to the events that we've done. And I don't have any bright ideas about that, but I think that would be an imperative, really. The second thought is, I mentioned this last night at the meeting, we should think seriously about how much energy is going to go into the grant writing in the next month.
Mhm.
And ask whether we want to dilute that with planning of an event. I have no yes or no on that, but at least it ought to come up for consideration.
Well, the issue, part of the issue is we did at the meeting, the lunch meeting in December, we promised people a follow-up meeting in January. So, I'm not sure people are really gonna remember that, but
Promises.
yeah. But I think what we had talked about informally was, having sort of a follow-up meeting to that. This is what we're planning for the grant. This is how we see the energy needs of the island. And then we'll put the OSED grant in, and if we get it, then we know we have to start having a lot more
Hmm.
community buy-in things. If we don't get it, I don't know what happens then.
Also,
Yeah,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Monica.
You go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, I just wanted to mention that this concept paper is just like getting in the door. And then it's in August that we'd submit the application for the OSED ERA grant.
Would we be able to tack on to the dinners or soups Wednesdays with ICC? If we're unable to get an event quite right now, maybe create flyers of information about the grant process. And then put like contact information if they have more questions, so then we can start filtering through the email.
Yeah.
And then advancing when we do have an event.
We raised that issue with regard to the upcoming dinner and music Saturday night.
Mhm.
And you just got me thinking that we don't have to present anything. What we could do is hand out a questionnaire of to the people there and ask them to give it back to us when they leave. What would you like to hear about? What have you?
People come in and out, and we wouldn't have to have as much of a formal presentation, but we could have, general handouts for people and discuss it one-on-one when they come in, rather than doing a big thing where we sit down and present things. That
Sure.
might actually work really well.
That also
Trevor's
works
idea
in
of
favor for your
sign-ins.
grant application, showing that you're doing collaborations with the ICC already for your
Mhm.
Island Fellow.
Yeah.
Do you know how long the soup thing goes at the ICC? Is it just January, or does it? I'll talk to Candace on Friday about it.
What thing, Janice?
The soups,
Oh, I don't know.
Well, last through
Just-
the winter.
Yeah, it usually
when we
goes through the
first
winter,
started
yeah.
out, Yeah.
yeah.
I like-
And
I like the
volunteers.
lunch. Oh, I'm sorry. I like the
Um,
lunch thing better than the dinner and a little music, because it just feels like that's complicated enough as it is. But the
Yes,
lunch
but you did hear, I wasn't suggesting any presentation or any direct interaction, right?
Okay.
Just, a questionnaire that people could pick up and drop off.
Put it next
Yeah,
to
well,
the-
the dinner and a little music is Saturday. Do we have a questionnaire? No.
Oh, well, but that's not hard to do. I mean, 3 or 4 questions, that's it. If you give them too much, they won't do it.
Carrie,
I would recommend both, because you get
different.
Yeah.
different audiences.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
lunchtime is very limited in how many people can actually show up for soup
Yeah.
at lunchtime, because people work during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Well, what
So-
questions do we want to ask?
Well, why don't we write out 10 questions? And why doesn't every one of us write 3 to 5 questions and we pull them together and we see which ones are decent and we limit it to very few so that people don't have to waste a lot of time with it.
Mhm. Okay.
I'm not sure I have time to do that, but
Well, those of us who have, people who have
Those who
time to do that,
have will.
we can do that, yeah. I mean, if a few of us do it, that would be helpful. So now I have down here that Maggie Wilcox had asked, was it you, Janice, that she asked a request for a summary and as well as what events we have planned so that she can put it into the paper. We obviously don't have any planned dates that we can give her. Any, I mean,
what she said was, this coming issue of the newspaper, the submission deadline is, I think, the very beginning of February. And she likes to do sort of a summary of what's already happened in the past year. So that's what she's looking for, not necessarily. And then on a separate thing, she's already putting together the summer calendar. So if we have anything we do want in the summer calendar, it's just a heads up that she's
Yeah.
ready to take it.
I could probably give her some kind of brief summary of the things that we've done. And that we're working on.
I can help you with that if you.
Okay. I don't have, just jumping ahead a little bit, I really don't have anything to add on the budget update, because we really haven't spent
Spend
any
it,
money.
yeah.
So that one's quick. Dick, you said you had some information on, that you've been gathering on the new ferry and what its requirements are.
Only what I just said about the rate structures and that are changing. Or apparently changing. One of the things that concerned me, what Bill was saying, that a 3-month delay into March. Well, it's gonna be hard to talk with any supplier like Constellation, for example, potential supplier, when they don't have a contract in place and not sure what's gonna happen. So I'm a little nervous about that, when there's nothing to lose by going back to Constellation, because then I can talk with them again about establishing some kind of a connection with off-peak power or something to that effect. Because we got a lot of metering and control questions that have to come up, and they haven't been solved yet.
And there's no possible way to do this on the island side for storage for the new ferry?
Yeah, the islands, the island side. The
Yes,
question is,
But the main state ferry service and DOT are very,
of course, and that's exactly what we're leading.
That is going to be
We're leading in the same direction. Because the ferry service is going to require higher use pricing. You can't charge batteries during the day at peak prices. It's ridiculous. It's not only ridiculous for the ferry, but it's ridiculous on a big concept for the state. So what we're talking about is basically a pre-pilot, if you would, to the ferry system. And the more we can pull Islesboro into the loop, as I said to the select board and to the emergency committee, the more we can pull Islesboro into the loop because of the electric, because we're moving on electric, the better chance. That's one more quiver in our backpack, so to speak.
Arrow on our cord.
And so that's why we can't, even though the savings may be minuscule now, in the future is huge.
right, we're still talking 3 years away for the ferry. Now, we do want to be planning on that. for
It
sure.
looks to me like we won't have any difficulties on a cable problem. I've talked with people that make the batteries and the cable people. That's ABB, which is the company that's a management company for the ferry system. And I looked at the one line diagram of the ferry. In fact, I don't have it here, it's another file. And there's no reason on earth why the cable under the bay is big enough to handle the charging of the batteries.
Yeah, you were gonna send us that information on the ferry.
I don't have it, anything formal, Bill, I just have dialogue. I just know that the ferry system is 2.4 megawatts of battery system, 2.45 basically. If you charge them off peak, you're probably gonna have to have more, you probably have to have 3 or 4 megawatts. And, but the cable is, as I remember, and it's discussed with CMP, it's 6 megawatts cable under the bay, so we should have enough. And of course, it leads to the second question about tying a battery system in a solar field. And or having it to turn on the lights if the power fails.
Right.
All of that is coming, but
So that's a good segue into, I just wanted to, update the rest of the committee on the work that we're doing on the OCED concept paper. Now, the OCED grant is a big grant. We haven't put together a budget yet, but I believe we can apply for up to $10 million. There
there's
is
a
some.
lot of questions that have to be
Yeah.
answered.
So let me finish. So the concept paper is like a
So,
7-page document that's kind of a broad overview. And as Prescott already pointed out, the more detailed full grant application would be due in August. So the projects that have, so we've developed a project list of things that we would, the things, the asks that we would have, and they include a battery storage system and charging capacity for the ferry. It also includes the microgrids that we have talked about, one for the town center, one up island, maybe one down in Dark Harbor, and then, interconnection between them. And that will include some form of storage capacity, possibly the hydrogen fuel cells or a combination of hydrogen fuel with, other types of batteries. The other pieces that are on the list include both low interest loans and even grants for homeowners to improve their weatherization, to get heat pumps, to get solar. So we're hoping that we would then have some funding that we could then offer to residents on the island who would like to do some of these things, but simply can't afford them at the present time. And the other thing, and we don't really have any details about what we do, but ways of protecting our existing cables is another feature of, what the.
What do you
island
mean
is.
by existing cables?
The power cables.
Power lines.
Power lines, yeah, that's what I meant, yeah. And so the concept paper, has to describe the island, what makes us unique, why do these solutions work for the island, as well as a description of the things that we have in mind. Right now, we have just a very rough draft, and it can only be 7 pages. And when we've and we are gonna share that with the engineers at NREL, have offered to help put it together. Senator King's office has offered to provide a letter of support if we get our draft to him. So we will get, once the draft has been put together a little bit more, we will circulate it to the members of the committee so that they can comment. One thing that is important to realize is that these drafts are not a public document. So they're not to be shared outside the committee when we circulate them, but.
I certainly would be happy to send the one-line diagram of the ferry
Yeah,
electric system, but my God, it's.
Well, I think, yeah, well, I mean, I think the members of the committee would be interested in this.
I would like to see whatever you have, okay?
Yeah,
I got 30 pages, Bill.
Well, then send me the 30 pages, I'll read it.
yeah.
Um,
So I have a question for Kreska about the OCD. We do the concept paper, and then do we then get something from the Department of Energy giving us the go-ahead for the full application?
I'll have to review the FOA, but some of them require the concept paper to get a that you have to have a recommendation to continue from the DOE in order
Yeah.
to submit your full application. Some they don't require a recommendation, and you can continue and submit a full application regardless of the outcome of the concept paper. So we'll just have to look at that again. Janice, do you know?
Well, I think so. When I read it, it says they'll give you a recommendation to ought to continue or ought not to continue. Even if they tell you you ought not to, they won't refuse to take your application. But I imagine if they object to your concept paper, you're gonna have to really do an amazing comeback to get through the
Yeah, that would
process.
Now, if they do say you ought not to move forward, will they be giving any like reason why to not move forward as the other grants
not
before done?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
The feedback that we've had on other grants has been pretty useless. So, I'm not sure what feedback you get.
Yeah. That it, on the most recent ones, there wasn't much useful feedback, I must admit. And I think beyond that, maybe once that concept paper's in, we do need to be looking, since there's no guarantee that we're gonna get this at, what other fund, maybe there are some more focal funding opportunities such as for the ferry, or the pieces of what we're talking about that we can look for.
I had a long conversation with Peter Wilcox, who I think most of you know.
Yeah,
And his comment about ferries was that, every ferry he, ran across, which he did, I'm sure, in Europe, all had shoreside battery storage systems. Because then the ferry could plug in during the peak hours of the day and sap some, energy from the battery system located on shore. Our system right now does not accommodate that. And that's a discussion I had with ABB about that situation. They do not accommodate a shoreside storage battery system, storage systems which they can use for, where we're gonna plug the ferry in and charge them when they needed it, not whether it's on peak or not. He said that, he said that, and in my discussions with ABB, was that most of the time, people don't budget that. What happens is that the 2 years down the road, after the ferry gets going, they discover they need the battery system on shore. And I'm approaching it now.
Every conversation I've ever heard about the ferry included batteries on both ends of the,
But it's not on the one line diagram for the system right now.
well, that's our biggest problem, the DOT.
That bothers me for 2
that's
months.
pretty important, and that is, but
I
that
think
is
we can-
part of what we're including in this, but, who knows where that will take us.
Yeah, we can't fix that with this proposal. We can fix that through other avenues. We just have to write in the strongest proposal we can under the assumption that they'll get their brains together and do it right.
Yeah, so, all right,
The ferry committee is looking at that pretty hard right now. So
right,
we'll see.
so any other comments? Yeah, go ahead.
I will not be available for the next meeting, and it is a little too close to the birth of my baby. I
Well, we'll
will
be thinking about
Thank
you.
you. I will enjoy, and I would like to be involved as much as I can. I can go through emails and whatnot. Try to hop onto Zoom calls for the meetings. Coming back in person for meetings, it would be around summertime.
Yeah,
So I just wanna let you know, and I do enjoy being involved and helping out with stuff, so just a heads up.
well, that's a good
Thank you for
news.
being there this morning,
Good
by the way.
news.
I know that
Yes.
wasn't,
Cool. The good news heads up.
Send us
Um,
pictures, send us pictures.
Of course.
The only other comment I want to make, part of its reaction to what happened last month, but I just want to reiterate that, we should all of us be conscious when we are speaking to the select board or other committees or just members of the community or anybody, that we need to be very clear when we're speaking on behalf of the committee. And when we are speaking on behalf of the committee, make sure that we are actually representing the opinion of the majority of the committee. Or if we're speaking as an individual, I mean, it certainly is not unheard of for an individual to disagree with something the majority has agreed with, and they have every right to do that, but they should just make clear, or we should make clear when we're talking to people, are we talking as an individual or on behalf of the committee? And I also think it'd be a good idea, it's not always possible, but when we're having a meeting or meeting with another group, if more than one committee member can be there, I think it's really useful because you can back each other, you can support each other, back each other up, verify what the other person is talking about, remember things the other one doesn't. So that's just something to think about. I mean, like two of you were there
Mhm.
at this morning's meeting, so.
Yeah, and Monica bent over backwards to get there on time, so,
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
well, not quite over backwards, but you know, that was
For a
metaphorical.
moment, you
That
know.
was metaphorical.
Thankfully, we were able to get off the ferry.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes,
Harriet,
wait,
wait. Harriet, I'd like to address what you just mentioned, and Janice, would you like to say something first?
Go ahead, because mine is on a different topic.
Okay, I'd like to address what you just said, because, we did have serious concerns about what happened at the select board meeting 2 weeks ago. And yeah, what happened was, we had a discussion at the previous Energy Committee meeting about what our consensus was about renewing the Constellation Energy contract with the town. And we had come to a consensus, but not a recommendation. And we had wanted to come to a recommendation and present that to the select board before we made a decision, before we asked the select board to make a decision on the Constellation contract. And that's what the select board and Janet had asked us to do. So we had that discussion in the previous Energy Committee meeting, and we had, after Dick called Janice earlier in the day, before that select board meeting, Janice and I had a discussion about that we needed to represent the Energy Committee's discussion about this Constellation contract. We needed to represent that if it wasn't represented accurately at the select board meeting. So Janice and I attended the select board meeting, and we found out that Dick recommended that the select board sign the contract. And as they were voting, I raised my hand, and they voted before they were able to hear both my and Janice's representation of the conversation that we had had the month before about the Constellation Energy contract. So what happened was Janice and I explained that we had wanted to either, on the recommendation of Constellation and Maine Power Options, we had wanted to wait until March to reevaluate the current supply price at that time that we'd be quoted, because it would likely be a better price than if we locked in that price in December when the prices are highest. And so that was recommended by K-Man and Michael Cloutier of Constellation Energy. So then we also had discussed at the previous meeting in December that we had, if Dick was able to provide the Energy Committee with the same day quote that he was going to present to the select board, if he was able to provide it with us, to us, we would be able to evaluate it and perhaps make a recommendation on that same day to the Energy Committee, to the select board. However, Dick did not provide that quote, but he recommended, without showing us the quote and without showing the contract and the quote to the select board, he recommended that the select board sign the Constellation Energy contract. So basically what happened was Janice and I tried to represent, what we had discussed previously. And that was the closest we could come to, having full representation on such short notice of the Energy Committee's discussions of the matter. So I would like to enter that into the record, and I would also like to enter in my objection to Dick's letter that he just circulated, which is about me. And if Dick is going to be making ad hominem insinuations about me, that he should just name me. And also that I object to the majority of his statements in this. You know, calling somebody an off-island energy committee member when you don't have any information about, my living situation and the fact that I'm a permanent resident and I spent half the week there and I just happen to work half of the time off island, that's, just, it's unacceptable. And, a number of other claims made in this letter are false. I never talked to CMP. I never said I talked to CMP. I never talked about, CMP's renegotiation of rates in March. That was what I did talk about, was quoting emails that Constellation Energy and Maine Power Options had sent to the town and to Dick. And I was CC'd on those emails, and I saw that Constellation and Maine Power Options were recommending that we renegotiate the contract in March with Constellation Energy. It has nothing to do with CMP. So, like a large portion of this letter that Dick has circulated and now is in the record, I'm, also going to make a statement that most of these statements are false. And I hope in the future that Dick is able to review the facts and review the record before he makes such statements about fellow Energy Committee members. Thank you.
Well, I think that we definitely should avoid personal attacks. I mean, we're all here to represent the town and to make recommendations that are in the town's best interest. My thinking right now has to do, how do we avoid similar problems in the future? I think having a special meeting, a Zoom meeting prior to making any recommendations is a good way of doing that, provided we can get a quorum to join in, and that each of us needs to be very careful about what we are representing. And hopefully we can avoid these kind of conflicts in the future. Janice, you also had a comment.
It's not on this topic, so are we done with this topic?
I think so, yes.
This is a really benign little tiny thing. Cindy Satchfield PM'd me on Facebook because I'm on the energy committee. And she said the pickleball players are unhappy with the lights in the school gym. And the pickleballers wonder if the energy committee can help get new lights. I told her I would bring this up with our group, but it seems to me that the school budget and school maintenance of the school is the school's thing, and it's not the energy committee or the municipal. But I just wanted to make sure that was accurate. And then I told her I would get back to her if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah, Melissa, can you?
Yep. Nope. The Kennecott Center is a municipality owned building. That they split the costs with the school, allegedly 50-50, but that has yet to happen, and the school takes on a lot of the cost for it. Before you guys think about doing anything with the lights in there, I would recommend sealing the holes in the roof. That way it doesn't leak water all over. And there's also the potential of the issues in the kitchen. That roof is not sustainable in any way, shape, or form. The town is aware of it, and the town and the school are currently embattled in their own, for lack of better term, pissing contest of who has to pay for what. And until they can get that sussed out, Janice, you'll just have to ask them to enjoy sunny weather or bring spotlights.
Well, is this even something that we want our committee to be involved in? I mean,
No.
is it? Yeah,
Sorry, that was me. That was my recommendation as a former member of the school and on the select board. And there are so many other things that we could, okay, horrible dad joke coming. There are so many other things that we could be putting our energy into that. No, thank you. I appreciate yes, but no, and anything that involves the Kennecott Center right now, I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Maybe for future project later on, ICC did work with the school for a little bit, changing the LEDs in their auditorium.
Was that the ICC?
Yes, it was the ICC, because you guys worked with Anne McKee when she was the fellow. And I think the school was slightly a part of it too. They had a program or something.
Wait a minute, we upgraded the LEDs in the ICC. That was an Anne McKee
Yes.
effort, okay? What, she was involved with the latter part of that. That was a 3-year effort involving the Island Institute and a grant and donation combined,
And
okay?
was the school involved at all of it?
Only, yes, do you want to take time with this now? I mean, I was there. I
Yeah, we
was-
don't
We
need to
did
go.
talk on email.
Yeah, we don't need to go into
I can
that.
explain that.
But did you have a comment on Janice's?
I did,
Yeah.
I did, and it is, I don't know how to say this. I need more preparation to say this intelligently and gently, but over the course of the past month, I have heard several people talk about issues with the school, and they merge with my own impression, which impinges on this story of whether we should recommend to the school or not. And I'll say very simply, it would be really great if the school would be more communicative on all levels having to do with activities, energy, construction, than it is. It tends, even though it's a member of the municipality, it acts autonomously. I know it has its own budget, but the money comes from the town. A lot would be solved if the school were more communicative, and that involves energy considerations in the building, about which we happen to know a little bit. I'll leave it at that.
can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
We have our hands full until this grant is done. So maybe when we
2026.
maybe we can bring this up in March and maybe I can try to get more information. But why don't we bring it up in March when this grant is done? Because I can't take on anymore and I don't know about the rest of you.
One thing I think coming up in February or March is we will have to put in our requests for next year's budget, so something to think about
Before we even spend this year's.
before we even spend this year.
Yeah.
Right. No. All right, so back to, we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Seconds.
Hold on, can I just pop in super fast about the budget?
Yeah.
I apologize, I can't be there in person today. I have a sick wee one that I'm worried that I would contaminate all of you guys with. And Monica times 2, so therefore you guys get me on the computer. When you guys start thinking about budget, I'm coming in as a independent person from the select board. You're going to want to be cautious, and you're going to want to make sure that you know exactly what you're asking for and what you can and cannot do without. This upcoming budget is going to be remarkably tight.
Okay.
And so I just want to kind of preface and kind of throw that out of, this is not the year to ask for the stars and the moon.
Okay.
Because I don't want it to come back as, nope, everything gets shut down.
Okay,
Yeah, we haven't even had a bad winter storm yet this year.
Correct.
yeah,
It's
Well,
coming.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
I had no
But-
time, claim to represent this committee without a vote of some kind beforehand. When my discussions with the state, which are gonna continue, I would never claim to represent this committee. I am a member of the committee, certainly.
Yeah.
And I believe I'm an expert in this particular field. But
That's-
beyond that,
That's,
I just want that to be crystal clear.
okay, that's
But you
fine.
did
And I
agree
did
in the
not
last
represent,
meeting
I
in the
represented the
minutes.
committee and on the select board meeting. Because when vote was taken, or we decided that I would make a proposal to the select board at that time.
Okay.
And it's in
But
the
you
minutes.
also agreed, which are in the minutes of the last meeting, that you would be informing the energy committee of information that you found and you never received
That
it.
was what I did to the select board and said this is
But
what I
you
did.
agreed that are in the minutes of last month's meeting, that any information that you would receive on that day, you would send it to the energy committee, which
couldn't
you
take
did
the vote.
not.
They couldn't, they had to vote at that time because that was the cost of power.
That's, I'm not talking about them voting, I'm talking about your actions of not providing information that you have found out on that day before the meeting. You agreed in the minutes.
You know, I don't
of the
think I'm gonna
December
take any
part.
more.
Just
I'm doing
because
it
you're
as a
upset that
favor for
people
this
are
committee.
disagreeing with you does not mean you need to act so childish, Dick. You are much older than me and I'm very upset with this.
I am
You don't
going to
need
resign from this committee if you continue with this.
Do not raise your voice at me. We are professionals.
See
We
you
are
later.
not childish on a playground.
Put that in the minutes.
Enough. I think we need to put this behind us. You are correct about the minutes. All right,
It was
So-
clearly in the minutes.
a vote to adjourn.
So moved. Oops,
Janice? Yeah.
I agree.
Monica? There
Absolutely.
you go. So we are adjourned.
Thank you.
What about me? What about me?
Oh, you're still in the meeting all by yourself.
I vote to adjourn, and I also want to express my gratitude to Monica. Thank you so much for everything.
I got you.
Yeah, I wasn't here, so I shut up because I had no input to it, at all.
That wasn't, that it's in the minutes.
No, it is, yes.
And I want you, I sent everybody the select board minutes from that meeting where that contract was discussed. So you can see.
Carrie, I sent you another
Thank
email.
you,
Is there
Carrie.
a second part to Dick's email or Dick's handout that he had? Or is it just a one-page document?
There's a one-page letter plus the flyer from Steps. That's what we have
Okay.
produced.
And I scanned both of those and sent them as separate PDF.
No,
to
that
the-
was perfect. I just wanted to make sure because I have 3 problems and then I was trying to follow along with it.
Let me know if
Yeah.
you didn't receive both of those PDFs in that
Nope, I
email.
got both of
Yeah.
them. I'm
Yeah,
good.
and I can also do a dramatic reading of the letter if you'd like, now that the meeting's
Not right
over.
now.
No,
I
that would-
appreciate
that would
all of
interrupt
you.
Digestion.
Yeah.
I do